Hey everybody, and welcome to the Think Orange podcast, where we want to encourage and equip leaders like you who are investing in the faith and future of the next generation. My name's Trey McKnight, I'm your host, and in this season of the podcast, we're interviewing some of the speakers we're hosting at Orange Conference 2022 this April. And we'll talk about what it means to be human and how our churches can better care for the humans in our communities. And we're also so excited for you to get to hear this conversation with our interviewer, Dave Adamson, and our guest, Carlos Whittaker. Carlos is an author, a speaker, an entrepreneur. He spent 10 years at Sandals Church in California before moving to Atlanta to become the service programming director at Buckhead Church. Carlos is the author of 2 books, including Kill the Spider. Carlos loves to help people live their life as opposed to their life living them. He's currently regularly teaching at churches and conferences worldwide, including Catalyst Conference, Embrace Church, Fresh Life Church, and so many more. We can't wait for you to get to learn from him.
Hey, Carlos, thank you so much for joining us on the Think Orange podcast. It's so great to see you today.
I am pumped to see your face.
Now, here's the deal. Dude, we didn't even talk about this, but what is happening here? Like, we match.
We match.
Your people...
Yes, great minds think alike. People were talking. I knew if I was going to be on this fancy video podcast thing, I had to look my best. So.
Well, good job. How is life in Tennessee at the moment for you and your family?
Oh man, life is great here in Tennessee. Just love, I love Middle Tennessee. Never in 1,000 years would I have dreamt that I would move to Nashville. I'm from LA. I lived in Atlanta. But Nashville's just become this sweet little spot, man, a little oasis. So we're having a good time. Our kids are older teenagers and just having a blast in that season.
That's awesome. So if you could live anywhere in the world, Carlos, where would you want to live? Any place.
Okay. So good. And now here's the problem to this question. It's not just one. So it's going to have to be 2. Okay. I'm that guy that's going to need a summer house and a winter house. Okay. I would need to split my time between Kalispell, Montana, Glacier National Park, and just the majesty of the outdoors. And then the other half, New York City, Manhattan. So I got to have a little bit of both. I got to have the city, but I also have to have the fly fishing. So if I could just split time between my 2 properties there, that would be great.
Brilliant. Well, who knows when that happens, we'll celebrate it all. We'll celebrate it. Hey, as we're in the countdown to Orange Conference, and we're talking about the idea of being human because, our conference theme is to be human. And obviously, it seems like a good idea to have you on, considering A, you've got a podcast called Human Hope, and B, you've got a book coming out later this year. Can you tell us a bit more?
Yeah, no, the book is actually called How to Human. And so listen, I mean, I know Reggie and I, we may look the same because we don't have hair, but apparently we like to theme seasons of our lives the same too, because I'm all about in this season, everything about, how to human, how to find hope in humanity. And I love that the Orange Conference is specifically targeting how to lean into our humanity. And I just love it. So
Carlos, for you, what does it mean to be human?
Yeah, to be human for me is to be a mess. And that's kind of where it starts. I feel like for far too long, we've seen it in our lives. We've seen humans try to perfect the art of not even the art, just the practice of their humanity on a daily basis. And the thing is we'll never perfect it. We're messy. Humans are messy. We'll never get it. I've got a book coming out called How to Human, but clue alert, clue phone. I'm not going to give you A plus B equals C. There's not a certain way to pull this off. And I love by God's original design that he created us to be messy. He created us to, have to figure it out, to feel highs and to feel lows and to all the things. And so, for me, to be human is really to embrace all of the intricacies of the mess that we're in, but also wanting to continue to improve.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Carlos, a lot of people would know you probably from social media, specifically Instagram, and even more specifically, again, Instagram stories. And some would argue that perhaps the messiest place on the planet is social media. So I want to know from you, somebody who's in that world, what is one of the most human things that you've ever experienced on social media?
Wow, great question. You're right. I try to use my social media as a place to show my humanness and to teach people how to human. And I've had various moments on my journey on socials that I've showed the guts of who I was as a human. But I definitely would say that it was March of this year. My family had like the worst week ever. Like our house flooded, my daughter got in a wreck, my dog died, our chickens got killed by an owl, and my wife broke her arm going down an escalator in Atlanta, all within like 5 days, right? And so like I was documenting this whole thing on Instagram, and it wasn't pretty. There wasn't like a bow to tie up on the humanity of the story. And let me tell you, when my faith in humanity was restored was I had a friend of mine, Sharon McMahon, who DM'd me and she said, "Hey, what's your Venmo?" And I was like, listen, like I'm a grown man. I don't need anybody to give me their, contributions. I'm fine. She's like, "You either tell me your Venmo or I'm going to find it." And I was like, "No, I'm not giving you my Venmo." Well, she found my Venmo and she put it up and she said, "Hey, one of my good buddies is having the worst week of his life. Let's see if we can't help pay for his basement or something." So she put it out there. And let me tell you, Dave, in the course of 24 hours, every ounce of debt that my family owed to anyone was completely paid off in 24 hours. Through the course of other humans just reaching out and wanting to touch us, wanting us to feel their humanity. And I'm not talking about just like the basement flood. I'm talking about hospital bills for 10 years. I'm talking about car payments. All of it was wiped out. And like, that was the most human interaction I'd ever had on social media. And that's when, for me, I started to shift even what I did on social media to try to connect people and allow people to be human with each other, even if they don't necessarily believe or align on the same things. Of course, we're never going to believe and align on the same things as humans, but we still can be human, the best versions of ourselves towards each other. So that's probably, one of the most impactful things that I've seen in humanity happen on socials.
And that's so great. And you've obviously you've started to pay this forward, right? Because this is something that now you're doing as well. Can you tell us a little bit about what sort of response do you get for people who don't know? First of all, for people who don't know, why don't you tell them a little bit about what you do to basically replicate what happened to you for other people that you see in need?
Absolutely. I have a social following that has grown and over the last year. And I'm like, well, what else besides just sharing my life and having these people support, my content, could I use my platform for? And so I started to just do these, I call them giving blitzes. And I was like, hey, in 24 hours, it's always a 24-hour blitz. How much money can we raise for ABC? And so, it started with a lady that needed a seizure alert dog. That was just one of my Instagram followers, and it cost about $30,000. And I was like, it was a Sunday afternoon, and I remember seeing her story. She didn't ask me; I just saw her story in my feed, and I was like, she only has I think she had like $7,000 raised, and she'd been raising money for a month. I said, I wonder what we could do. So I put it on my Instagram story, and I don't know, it was 3 minutes later, she had a dog. 3 minutes later, she had $30,000. Wow. And I was like, oh, wow, wait a second. Well, that happened. And then I tried it again. I went on a trip to Alaska and raised a whole bunch of money for these kids from Brooklyn, this leadership program. It was, I think we raised like $280,000 in 24 hours. And at that point, Dave, I started realizing, okay, I've got a community that wants to give and I'm not going to stop. So in the course of the last 6 months, let's see, right around 6 months, we've raised about $800,000 strictly in Venmo and PayPal donations alone. So I'm talking about like $3 donations, $1.50 donations. And so I've just seen so many people be impacted by humans coming together. So that's really, that's what you've asked. That's what I've really been into and kind of leading this charge recently.
That's so fascinating, dude. Now, obviously, that's an inspiring story that a lot of people will get inspiration from. What can people do though? Realistically, what can the average person who's listening to this podcast, who's maybe like the pastor of a small church, or maybe they're in, student ministry, they're a youth pastor or something along those lines. What can they do that's similar to that without the following on social media that you have?
Oh, I tell people all the time, it actually has nothing to do with the amount of money or the amount of followers, and everything to do with just seeing another human. That's it. All these people that are being helped. Of course, the financial blessing is great for them, but what they've told me over and over again is like, Carlos, like I felt invisible, and all of a sudden people see me. Yeah. And so what I tell the pastor listening to this, or the, whoever it may be, every day, try to find somebody that you can see, whether that's just a smile in a grocery store, whether that's paying for somebody's groceries yourself, that you see a mom struggling with 3 kids, like just kind of like, just run up to them and stick your credit card in the machine before they go. Like, what are ways that you can see other people? It doesn't have to be a financial thing. You can just tell somebody how amazing their outfit looks. I did a little test on an airplane a couple months ago, and I said, I'm going to compliment every single person that walks on this plane, like every single person. So every single person that I could get it out as fast as I could. Man, I love your shoes. Oh my gosh, like your smile looks great. And the amount of people that like stopped me and thank you so much. Like, you could see how just a compliment can change someone's day. So that's all I'm telling people, is just see people. That's all of these giving blitz are doing, is they're making people feel seen. And that's what people desire.
I was literally reading, Carlos, just last week that a big health insurer in the US came out last month with a study that showed that Gen Z spends 7.3 hours per day on their smartphone, yet 79% of Gen Z also say that they experience loneliness. So what you're talking about right there, like, it's just that simple thing of leveraging whatever you have, whether it's in person or online, to make a difference and let somebody be seen. That's what I took away from what you just said. It's about just letting other people know that as a human, you see them as a human, right?
Yeah, well, there's not only a pandemic of COVID that swept across the planet, but there's literally an epidemic of loneliness. There's data and research that's being done right now, scientific research, that's showing that loneliness is actually more detrimental to your health than like some heart disease, than a lot of other things. Like, loneliness impacts us. And so, yes, like, people are desperate to be seen, and all it takes, I mean, if somebody like just sees you for something, right? Like, what's like a great gift that someone's given you? It's never the most expensive gift. It's always the most meaningful gift that shows you that, oh my gosh, how did they know? Well, how do they know? They saw you.
Yeah.
Right? They saw you.
So true, so true. So obviously there's a lot of church leaders who listen to this podcast, Carlos. So I want to shift the conversation sort of that way. What do you think it would look like for the church to be more human? The capital C church, what can they do, or what can we do to be more human as an organization?
Yeah. This is a big thing that I've been trying to lean into the last year and a half, because as I have decided to see more people on my socials, right? As during, the kind of the raids that everyone was feeling of 2020, like trying to have crucial conversations in a grace-filled way and seeing a lot of people, I'll be honest with you, it was the church that was pushing back against me. And when I say the church, I'm not saying like the global capital C church, but maybe smaller, lowercase c individual churches that were hesitant to the message that I was trying to, convey. And this how to human idea, this whole idea of like, all people want to do is they want to be seen. So like, when you start unpacking a lot of the issues that are sweeping across our landscape, and you unpack them through the evangelical lens, I'm telling you right now, like, if there's anything that that you may disagree with somebody that's standing on a certain issue, they just want to be seen. And when if the church can just see people, and I tell people all the time this, when people ask me, Carlos, where do you stand on this issue, right? There's like 10 issues that people want to know where I stand. I tell them the same thing every time. I don't stand on issues. I walk with people. I don't stand on issues. I walk with people. The more the church can begin to stop standing on issues and instead start walking with the people that those issues affect, at that point, friend, that's when we're going to start to see the revival, spill out across America. And that's what I think people are waiting for. That's what people that are deconstructing their belief system in the church and all these things. Listen, that's deconstructing their belief isn't a new thing. This isn't new. We don't need to be scared of this. We just need to walk alongside them and say, hey, we see you and we love you, and allow the Holy Spirit to be the one that convicts instead of us. Like, that's Holy Spirit's role. If our job is to see and to love, allow Holy Spirit to convict, at that point, I think we're going to be the church.
So good, dude. I want to get super practical around this. I think everybody listening understands this idea, right? Of being, of letting people know that you see them. But practically speaking, especially from a social media point of view, let's talk about it from an online perspective. How can that happen? What advice can you give to somebody who's like, how can I see, quote unquote, see somebody on social media, Carlos? What would you advise me to do? What would your answer be to them? Absolutely.
I think that there's a couple things. I think the first thing that you can do is, not let somebody else manage your social media accounts, right? Like I get it. But I'm like, man, I can snip that a mile away when there's a pastor or a church leader that some intern has managed their account. That is the least human thing you could ever do. And I will tell you right now, and this may be, email Dave. You don't have to email me if you want to complain about this, but stop it. It's social media for a reason. Like people want to interact with you. So you comment back, you heart their replies, you do those things. And then the second thing I would say that humanizes social media for me is, you're going to run, if you're doing social media, I believe if you're doing it correctly, you're going to run across and people that don't think like you, don't talk like you, don't vote like you, all the things like you. And so you're probably going to end up having some interactions with people that vehemently disagree with a lot of things that you're talking about, right? If I'm talking about not standing on issues, but walking with people, now's where it gets hard, right? Now we're walking with people. And this is what I tell people all the time. In order to humanize social media for me, especially disagreements, anytime somebody sends me a DM that's like rawr, or a comment that's like rawr, right? And they're like roaring and they're pissed. I inevitably, every single time I open up my camera and I record a video and I say, hey, I just wanted you to see my eyes before you reply back, because I wanted you to know that like I see you and I hear you and I'm for you. And so we're probably going to disagree, but I just wanted you to get it from my mouth and not my thumbs. And I tell you, 99 out of 100 times, that person has inevitably, not only has the conversation gone well, but they've probably ended up becoming a friend of mine. Like somebody that's like, well, guess what? We're not going to see eye to eye on this, but I really like you, And so those are just two things that I would say. Run your own social media account, do it yourself as much as you can. And then also try to reply on video to as many people as you
can. Now that's interesting, because a lot of people don't even know that you can literally do that in a DM, right? You can either record your video or you can record your audio. I find audio sometimes, just hearing that tone of voice is so different, right? It reminds me, everything you just said, Carlos, reminds me of what our friend Reggie Joyner says. Everything changes when it's someone you know, right? When it becomes personal, that anger, that frustration that can come through when you're using your thumbs to speak goes away when it's somebody you know. And so something really key that you said also is, if pastors are leveraging using their own social media themselves, then when they respond to somebody, we don't understand. I don't think we understand the value of the return on investment when you like somebody else's post, when you comment on somebody else's post. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I try to do that I can't do it anymore. I used to really pride myself in replying to every DM, and now I can't do it, but I do try to reply to at least 100 a day, and I'll reply. And whether it's a voice memo, a video, or a comment. And let me tell you what happens is these people who are in the massive 240,000 followers suddenly don't feel like they're in a massive 240,000 followers. Suddenly they're like, oh my gosh, my friend Carlos, like, even though I may have only liked one of their comments, they're like, no, that's my friend. And they're in it with me, And so, it's very, very, very important that we do that.
Gosh, man, this conversation just reminds me of what Andy Stanley says, right? The world might not agree with what we say about Jesus, might not agree with what we believe about the Bible, but we should be famous for how much we see and care for other people. That's what's going to change the world, right?
So good. It's so good. I mean, that's what they're measuring us for, right? That's why I have, atheists and witches. I had like a group of witches that DM'd me, and they're like, we love your stuff. We don't believe anything that you talk about when it comes to your faith, but man, you're such a great human. That's always what they say. And I'm sitting here going like, okay, guess what? What they don't know is I'm just representing Jesus. This is just a palpable presence of Holy Spirit in me. They may not know it yet, but the longer they hang out, the more opportunity I'm going to have. So I'm not freaking out that I'm not sharing Bible verses every single post I put up. And I'm not like, having a gospel or a salvation prayer at the end of everything. No, like this is the long game for me. And I'm trying to like get these relationships in for the long haul.
That's good,
and
dude.
The amount of people that have told me, Carlos, I followed you for 5 years. I've never been to church, but this weekend you convinced me. And I went to church for the first time in 5 years. I'm like, that never would have happened had I been like, week 1, follow me. You got to go to church and raw. No, this is the long game. Remember, it's a long game.
Yes, I say that all the time to people. Social media is a marathon. It's not a sprint, right? Yeah. People will follow your example more than they follow your opinion. It's so good. There's so much good stuff here. Because you said something, I want to go back and I want to keyword optimize this podcast right now, Carlos, and put you on the spot. What are 3 things people can do to be better humans that you haven't already said? Now, I'm going to give you a clue into one. You said you're just trying to be like Jesus, right? So what are 3 things people can do as soon as they switch off listening to this podcast or watching this video on YouTube? What's 3 things they can do to be a better human to the people around them today?
Yep. First of all, they have to learn to literally be a better human, right? Like you've got to take care of yourself. You've got to make sure that the first layer of humanity that you're dealing with is your own. So what's that mean? Does that mean diet? Does that mean exercise? Does that mean counseling? Does that mean therapy? Does that mean what's something tangible that okay, how can I better myself right now? There's step 1. The first thing is to be human. Second thing I'm going to tell people is what I've mentioned before. Who is somebody you can see today? Like how can you find another human to see? So you're going to be a human, you're going to see a human. And then when you see humans, the third thing, I'm already giving away my How to Human book outline right now. But this is it, man. After you see humans, now we're given the opportunity to free humans. Okay, so I go be human, see human, free humans. Not only see somebody, but after you see them, it's not good enough just to be convicted by something. There has to be action following conviction. So what can you do to actually free the person in front of you in some way, shape, or form? That freedom may come from a smile. That freedom may come from a compliment, but putting action behind your conviction is my kind of 3 tangible steps. So be human, see humans, and free humans. And I think if you apply those things every single day, you're going to see things happen better around you.
Man, I love that. Thank you so for giving that part of the way. I mean, I know that's going to make people want to buy the book even more. That's such good advice right there. I always come back to this idea that, it's called humankind for a reason, right? Because as humans, we're supposed to be kind. The clue is in the name. And even you look at the life of Jesus when he talks about in Matthew 25 that, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. Like all of these are acts of kindness, right? It's so tangible. And they fall into one of those 3 categories. Yes.
No, it's not so freaking complicated, man. You don't have to go to Live Your Best Life Now seminar to figure out how to do this human thing right. Just be kind. I like it. I love that. Be Jesus. Just copy and paste. Open up the gospel. Do what he did.
Yeah, it's so good, right? And so simple. Hey, what gives you hope for the future, Carlos? What is it that's happening in your world right now, or that you see that gives you hope for the future of humanity?
Yeah, I think what gives me hope is that we've hit a point of this point of contention where people are having to choose right now whether or not that they are going to continue to go down this path, and I'm just going to continue to hate everybody, or you know what? I think I'm over it. I think I'm over hating everybody. And that's what gives me hope is I feel like more and more people are kind of like, you know what? I'm kind of done listening to the voices that are just telling me to hate everybody, that are telling me why these people are wrong. And I'm over it. And so the more I travel, the more I speak, the more I talk to people on my socials, the more what gives me hope is people are done with that. People are ready to be humankind again. They're ready to be the humans that they were created to be. And I feel like all the pain that we've gone through the last 18 months, 24 months is about to come out as revival on the other side. And that gives me hope.
Yeah, that's so good. Hey, Carlos, what makes you laugh? You talked about smiling a lot. I want to know, what is it that makes you laugh? What is it that makes you smile?
Oh my gosh, that's great. I would say my friend Thad makes me laugh. First of all, we all have that one friend, right, that just makes us laugh. And so whenever I can get around Thad, I know I'm going to laugh because he's got the best jokes, right? And so and then dad jokes make me laugh. So you give me a good dad joke, you can make me laugh. Here's my favorite dad joke. Okay, ready? Why can't ants catch COVID?
I don't know. Why can't ants catch COVID?
Because they have tiny little antibodies. Boom! Boom! There it is, right there. There's my favorite dad joke of the hour. But yeah, dad jokes and my friend Thad make me laugh.
Oh, brilliant! Hey, one last question. If you could go back and give young Carlos some advice, if you could give yourself advice from when you were 20, if you could go back now to 20-year-old you, what advice would you give yourself about being in ministry?
Man. Ooh, I would probably tell myself at 20, I would have to prophesy to myself that there's this thing coming called social media. And I know 20-year-old Carlos, you're not going to know what that is. And actually it's going to like ruin your life for a few years because you're going to think that the goal of ministry is what it looks like on the outside as opposed to how it's impacting people on the inside. And I'm telling you what, once I figured that out, that it is no longer like, hey, what do people think about how I look doing ministry? And what is ministry actually doing to those around me? At that point, it shifted everything. And I know not everybody that listens to this podcast is going to struggle with that. But for those of you that do, and it's getting harder and harder not to, I just think that we've got to remember that how our ministry affects people on the inside is way more important than what it looks like on our outside.
Yeah, that's really good. What advice do you give your kids around social media, Carlos? Because I feel like it's probably similar to what you would give 20-year-old Carlos. Yeah.
I definitely tell them that. My daughters, it's really crazy. My kids actually aren't into social media, and you know this because you study the trends, like I am, right? So like they're using social media more so to communicate with friends as opposed to. They think it's weird that I document every moment of my life on social media for all these 35-year-old soccer moms around the country. Like they're like, that is weird, Dad. Like, why? So for my kids, it's more about just understanding that their value isn't based on the filters that they place on their, on their face and all the things. And it is, it's something that I want them to treat with respect, and that I want them to know is social media is very powerful. And I think the last 6 months, they've seen how powerful it is on my social media. They've seen people's lives become changed. And so I'm starting to see them go like, hey, I wonder if I can do that. I wonder if I can use my social for good. So that's what I'd probably lean into them with. That's good. Carlos Whittaker, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate your time. When does the book come out? The book will be out, crossing our fingers, in October of 2022 of this year. Great. Awesome. Carlos, again, thank you so much, man. It's so great to see you.
Well, we want to say thank you so much to Carlos for joining us on this episode. As a longtime friend of Carlos, I always love everything that he has to say and all the wisdom that he has to share. Now, if you enjoyed listening to this conversation as well, you can purchase Carlos's book, Kill the Spider, in our Orange store. How do you find it? Well, you go to orangestore.com, or you can go wherever books are sold. Now, we'd also love for you to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That's super helpful for us to get the word out and share all the wisdom. We love this review by Casey. She actually said, each episode brings in practical, immediately applicable tips for leaders and volunteers in preschool, kids, and student ministry. Love that the podcast is also easy and fun to listen to. So Casey, thank you for listening, and thank you for sharing that review. Now, we cannot wait for you to join us at Orange Conference 2022 so that you can join the conversation and we can continue learning what it means to be human together. So go to theorangeconference.com to save your seat for an Orange Conference like you've never seen before. That's all for this week. We will see you next time on the Think Orange podcast.